There are two types of people watching this right now. The first type has a dream, a clear one. They can see it, almost touch it. But every time they get close, something pulls them back. A voice, a memory, a doubt so deep it feels like a physical weight sitting on their chest. The second type has already decided. Not that they've figured everything out, they haven't. Not that they're fearless, they're not. But they've decided something quiet and fierce and non-negotiable, that they are going to make it happen. No matter what. Here's what's wild. Both of these people might have the same talent, the same resources, the same starting point, but one of them will build the life they imagined and one of them won't. And the only difference, the single undeniable variable, isn't intelligence. It isn't luck. It isn't who their parents were or what zip code they grew up in. It's belief. Not the bumper sticker version of belief. Not the think positive thoughts and the universe will deliver version that gets mocked for good reason. The real thing. The gritty, practiced, battle-tested version of belief that has driven every human being who has ever built something extraordinary from nothing. This is what we're talking about today. And by the end of this, you won't just feel inspired. You'll understand exactly why belief works, how it's been silently working against you, and what you can do about it starting right now. Before we get into stories and strategies, let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when you believe in yourself, because it's not metaphysical, it's mechanical. Neuroscience has given us one of the most important discoveries in human history, and most people have never really let it sink in. The brain is not fixed. It is not a static machine that you were born with, fully formed, programmed to a certain ceiling. It physically reshapes itself based on what you repeatedly think, feel, and do. New neural pathways form. Old ones strengthen or dissolve. What you believe about yourself literally determines the architecture of your own mind. Now here's where it gets even more fascinating. In the late 1990s, a Harvard researcher named Ellen Langer conducted a study that became known as the counterclockwise experiment. She took a group of elderly men in their 70s and 80s, men with real physical limitations, and immersed them in an environment designed to make them feel like it was 1959. The furniture, the music, the conversations, everything reflected who they were 20 years younger. Within days, their physical measurements improved. Grip strength, posture, vision, memory. Their bodies responded to what their minds believed was true. That's not a metaphor. That's physiology. And then there's the placebo research in athletic performance. Studies where athletes were told they were given a legal performance-enhancing supplement when they were given nothing at all. They ran faster. They lifted more. They recovered quicker. Their belief that they could perform at a higher level caused them to actually perform at a higher level, because belief changes your cortisol response, your dopamine output, and the neural signals that govern your muscle recruitment and pain tolerance. You are not fighting against your potential. You are fighting against your beliefs about your potential. And those beliefs are not facts. They are habits. And habits can change. Here's the thing nobody talks about enough. Most people don't fail because of a lack of skill. They don't fail because the market is too competitive, or because they started too late, or because the cards were stacked against them. Most people fail because they have already decided who they are, and that decision is so deep, so automatic, they don't even recognize it as a choice. I'm just not a disciplined person. I've never been good with money. I'm not the type of person who takes risks. People like me don't end up in places like that. Every one of those sentences sounds like an observation, like the speaker is just being honest with themselves, being realistic, being grounded. But they are not observations, they are instructions. Instructions that your brain, your nervous system, and every choice you make in a given day will faithfully follow. Identity is the most powerful driver of human behavior. Not motivation, not willpower, not discipline, identity. Because people will always act in ways that are consistent with who they believe themselves to be. If you believe you are a person who gives up when things get hard, you will find a perfectly reasonable sounding justification for quitting every single time. If you believe you are a person who figures things out, you will keep figuring things out long after everyone else has gone home. The shift is simple to describe and brutally difficult to do, but it starts with a question: what kind of person do I need to be to get where I want to go? And then you start making tiny decisions every day that match that identity. You don't wait to earn the identity. You claim it first. You act from it. And gradually, through the weight of repeated action, it becomes true. There's a study out of Stanford showing that people who were randomly assigned to write essays about a future version of themselves they genuinely aspired to be, not a fantasy, but a real possible version, showed measurable increases in academic performance, persistence under stress, and self-regulation compared to control groups. They didn't get smarter. They got a new idea of who they were, and their behavior followed automatically. Who you think you are is who you will become. Which means the most important project you will ever work on isn't your business or your body or your bank account. It's your self-concept. Somewhere along the way, someone told you to be realistic. Maybe it was a parent who loved you and was terrified of watching you get hurt. Maybe it was a teacher who had stopped believing in their own dreams years earlier and was unconsciously passing that ceiling on to you. Maybe it was a friend, a sibling, a whole community of people who meant well, who cared about you, and who had collectively decided that ambition beyond a certain point was dangerous, embarrassing, or simply not for people like them. Don't get your hopes up. That's a nice dream. But be practical. You need a backup plan. People like us don't end up doing things like that. Here's what that really is. It is social programming. It is the invisible architecture of a culture that, consciously or not, is designed to maintain the status quo. Because people who believe they can do extraordinary things are unpredictable. They disrupt systems. They make the people around them uncomfortable by reflecting back without saying a word everything those people chose not to attempt, and so doubt becomes the default. Caution becomes wisdom. Dreaming gets rebranded as naivety, and slowly, without anyone putting a gun to your head, you start policing your own ambition. You do the doubting work for them. You internalize the limitation and call it self-awareness. But here is what you need to understand clearly. The people who told you to be realistic were operating from the ceiling of their own belief system. They could not see past it. Not because they were stupid or malicious, but because that ceiling was real to them. And real ceilings for one person are not automatically real ceilings for another. The Wright brothers were told by engineers with more credentials than them that powered flight was physically impossible. Less than a decade before Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, a leading physiologist published research arguing the human heart would fail under the strain. Both claims were accepted wisdom. Both were completely wrong. Not because the facts changed, because someone decided the facts didn't apply to them. What ceilings are you living under that someone else built? Let's be clear about something, because the word belief gets weaponized by a certain kind of motivational content that will hurt you more than help you. Belief is not a feeling. It is not a state you float into on a good morning when the coffee is right and the music is hitting and everything feels possible. That's a mood. Moods are worthless as a foundation. Moods change by noon. Real belief is a practice, an active, daily, unglamorous practice. And it looks nothing like what you see on inspirational highlight reels. It looks like Michael Jordan, the most decorated basketball player in history, getting cut from his high school varsity team as a sophomore and going home to cry in his room, and then getting up the next morning and outworking everybody in the gym. Not because he had already proven himself, because he had already decided. It looks like Albert Einstein being rejected from the Zurich Polytechnic entrance exam and being told he didn't have the aptitude for physics. It looks like Oprah Winfrey being fired from her first television job as a news anchor, with the producer telling her she was unfit for TV. It looks like J.K. Rowling, broke and depressed, submitting the manuscript for Harry Potter to 12 different publishers, collecting 12 rejection letters, and mailing it to a 13th. None of these people felt certain of success. Certainty is a myth. It doesn't arrive before the work. It arrives sometimes after years of work, and sometimes it never arrives at all. What they had was not certainty. What they had was a decision. A decision that the story wasn't over yet, that the current result was data and not destiny, and that they were going to keep going. That's it. That is the whole secret. Not talent, not genius, not some supernatural reservoir of confidence that selected people are born with. A decision repeated across days and weeks and years to keep showing up for the thing they believed in. And what happened next would change everything for each of them, not because luck finally showed up, but because they were still there when it did. Nobody talks about how doubt compounds. We talk about compound interest in finance all the time. Small amounts invested consistently, growing exponentially over time. The math is beautiful and almost impossible to intuit until you actually see it play out. But here's what we never say out loud. Doubt works the exact same way. Every time you back down from a challenge, every small retreat, every I can't, every that's not for me, every conversation with yourself that ends in defeat, those aren't isolated incidents. They are deposits into an account that is quietly, patiently building a wall between you and everything you want. And just like compound interest, the damage isn't obvious at first. One retreat feels like wisdom. 2 retreats feel like caution. 50 retreats feel like your personality. And by then, the wall feels like a fact of nature. But here's the other side of that equation. Belief compounds too. Every small, brave decision, every time you stay in the room when your instinct is to flee, every moment you choose the hard thing over the comfortable one, those are deposits too. And they build something opposite. They build evidence. They build a track record that your nervous system can point to and say, I have done hard things before. I can do hard things again. The ancient Stoics had a practice they called premeditatio malorum, premeditation of difficulties. It sounds dark, but it's actually clarifying. The idea was to sit with the worst realistic outcome, make peace with it, and act anyway. Because the fear of failure is almost always worse than failure itself. And once you've genuinely confronted that fear and taken action regardless, your belief in your own resilience skyrockets. Not because nothing bad happened, because you survived it when it did. There is a quote attributed to various people but true regardless of its origin. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your beliefs. This is worth sitting with. Your goals are not the ceiling. Your beliefs are the ceiling. And unlike goals, which are external targets, beliefs are entirely within your control to change. So how do you actually do it? Not the abstract version, the real version. The version that works on a Tuesday when you've had 3 straight weeks of setbacks and your motivation is somewhere on the floor and you're starting to wonder if you were ever cut out for this. It starts with evidence, not grand proof. The smallest possible proof that you are someone who can do something hard. You don't need to have conquered Everest to believe you can climb a hill. You need to look back at your own history and find the times you pushed through when you wanted to stop. The times you surprised yourself. The times you did the thing you thought you couldn't do. Find those moments. Write them down. Build what some performance psychologists call an evidence journal, a record of your own capability that you can return to when your brain is lying to you. Then you build. Deliberately, specifically. You set micro challenges, things just slightly beyond your current comfort zone, and you complete them. Not because they matter in themselves, but because your nervous system doesn't distinguish between big wins and small ones in terms of what it records. Every completion is a data point. Every data point erodes doubt and fortifies belief. Surround yourself with people who believe in the possible. This is not optional. This is not a nice to have. Belief is contagious, and so is doubt. The people you spend the most time with are calibrating your sense of what's normal. If everyone around you has accepted a certain ceiling, you will absorb that ceiling without ever being told it exists. Find the people who have broken through to somewhere you want to go, not to copy their exact path, but to calibrate your own sense of what's achievable. Clean up your mental diet. The content you consume is constantly shaping your baseline beliefs about what's possible. Content that makes you feel helpless, outraged, or small compounds in exactly the same way doubt does. This doesn't mean ignore reality. It means be deliberate about what you let fill the space between your ears. And finally, visualization. Not as mysticism, as neuroscience. When you vividly imagine yourself executing at a high level, your brain activates many of the same neural pathways as if you were actually doing it. Top-level athletes, surgeons, and performers have been using this for decades. It is not wishful thinking. It is rehearsal for the nervous system. The goal is not to visualize the outcome. It's to visualize yourself taking the specific actions required, clearly and repeatedly, until they feel familiar instead of foreign. There will come a moment. And if you're pursuing anything worthwhile, it will come more than once, when everything inside you says stop, not a quiet whisper. A full-volume internal revolt. Your body is exhausted. Your results are not matching your effort. The people around you are starting to look skeptical. The version of the future you believed in is starting to feel like a delusion. And the most reasonable-sounding voice in the world, the one dressed up in practicality and self-protection, starts making the case for quitting, that voice is persuasive. And it will dress itself in sensible language. It will talk about sustainability, about cutting your losses, about being kind to yourself, about knowing when to pivot. And sometimes, genuinely, sometimes, it's right. Quitting the wrong thing to pursue the right thing is not failure. But most of the time, in the moments I'm describing, that voice is not wisdom. It's proximity to breakthrough. Because here's what I've seen across history, across every field, across every story of human achievement that I've encountered, the moment right before a breakthrough almost always looks and feels like the moment before a breakdown. The pressure peaks, the doubt spikes. The evidence that anything will ever work has never looked thinner. And in that exact moment, the person either holds on or lets go, and the outcome is almost entirely determined by which one they do. Every person who has ever built something extraordinary has had that moment, usually more than once. The entrepreneur who almost closed the company the month before they found product market fit, the artist who nearly deleted everything the week before the work that changed their life, the athlete who almost retired the season before the championship. These are not exceptions. They are the pattern. The wall isn't a sign to stop. The wall is confirmation that you are in the right territory, pushing into the space where most people never go, because most people turn around right here. Here's where we land. Belief is not a gift that some people are born with and others aren't. It is not a permanent state that you either have or don't. It is something you build, something you practice, something you choose over and over again in the small moments and the large ones, in the quiet of a morning and in the darkness of a setback. What we've covered today isn't theory. The neuroscience is real. The identity research is real. The pattern across every person who has ever done anything worth doing is real. Your beliefs are shaping your biology, your behavior, and your outcomes right now, today, whether you're consciously directing them or not. So the only question is, are you going to start directing them? Not tomorrow, not when the conditions are better, not when you have more proof, more support, more certainty. Now, with what you have, from where you are, here is your challenge, and I want you to take this seriously. Think of one decision, one action, one step that the doubting version of you would absolutely never take. The version of you that's been listening to that reasonable, practical, self-protective voice, that version would never make the call, never send the email, never sign up for the thing, never say out loud the thing you actually want. Do that thing today, not because it guarantees success, not because the outcome is certain, but because the act of doing it, of choosing belief over doubt in one real concrete moment, is how the wall starts to come down. Brick by brick, decision by decision. You don't need more time. You don't need more talent. You don't need permission from anyone. You just need to decide, and then you need to start.